It's good. Sounds good. All right. We are live. This is my first live stream actually in a long time. So, welcome to all who are going to be watching. Um, the live streams are back, and it's good to be back. This is actually what it's been a while since I've been on YouTube. So, now that I've got the swing of things with coaching, I wanted to get out there and start talking and start s- talking to more people within the carnivore community. And today I've brought in a special guest. We're gonna have a good chat, a good yarn. My good, a friend from Australia who's been on the carnivore diet, and he'll talk about his story and I guess tell us all about it. So welcome, Troy.
G'day, Joff. Nice to be with you, mate.
Awesome stuff. Well, let's start off with your story. What's gotten you into carnivore? Sort of talk us through life before, what led you up to this point of going in an all meat inclusive diet, and what have you experienced?
Yeah, sure. So I've been I'd been overweight, pretty seriously overweight most of my adult life, just eating the wrong stuff. I was a 2 liter of Coke a day man. Hardly
Mm,
ate a meal if it didn't come through the driver's side window of my car, that sort of thing. So um, I'd always, I tried to lose weight here and there, and you'd be disciplined for a couple of weeks, and then you'd fall back off the wagon and go through that roundabout again and again. And in October last year, on the sort of prompting of my wife, because I was having a
mm,
few issues that in the back of my mind could have been related to diabetes, and turns out they were.
mm,
And so I got to went and had some blood work done, and the results weren't fantastic. I had all 5 markers of metabolic syndrome, so I was in
wow.
pretty big strife. A diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. My A1C, which a lot of you listeners probably know is a 3-month average of your blood sugar, was 16.8. So nearly 3
Wow.
times the threshold of diabetes. I've had a couple of doctors tell me that's the highest they've ever seen. One said he's surprised I was still
Mm,
here. So that prompted me to take some pretty drastic action. So the doctor actually wanted to do the standard thing and put me on insulin injections, metformin, the whole
yeah.
raft of blood pressure medication, statins, the whole raft of stuff.
Mm,
Very fortunately for me, in probably the 6 month prior, when I knew that I was having some symptoms, I sort of said to myself, I'll get this sorted one day. And I started doing research, and I started looking at people like Dr. Robert Lustig and Mark Hyman and
mm,
Gary Taubes and these sort of people. And so I sort of, in the back of my mind, I think I knew the right things to do, but it was that sort of diagnosis that gave me the kick up the arse that said, you need to do something now. So I came home and started researching, sugar and low carb, and just happened to, by chance, come across Dr. Ken Berry's channel, and watched a couple of his videos, himself, Sean O'Mara, a couple of other people, and just decided that, I'm just going to give this a go. What is there to lose? And sort of 3 months in, the results were just staggering. I'd
mm,
reversed my type 2 diabetes, my blood pressure, which was 165 over 110, which is basically classified as a metabolic emergency. I was back in normal range.
mm,
Um, I had a couple of the symptoms that sort of had me really worried. Was I was suffering from diabetic neuropathy, which is pins and needles in my fingers, and that's a
wow.
precursor if it goes on
Yeah.
to
Mm,
getting limbs amputated. I also had diabetic retinopathy,
mm,
which in layman's terms meant I was going blind. So I was buying, the reading glasses that you get from the service station, and I was going back every 2 weeks to
yeah.
get a stronger pair because my vision was deteriorating that rapidly. And now I don't wear glasses at all. So
Wow.
no more aches and pains, no arthritis, none of that stuff. So it's just been an absolute godsend. And while I was, as I'm sure you did, I dug my head in and did all the research I could to benefit my own health. And I just went down a rabbit hole and just thought, there are so many people out there like me who just don't know the right thing to do. There's a real
Mm.
opportunity here to start helping some people, and it just gave me the calling that this is what I want to do, and I think this is what I'm meant to do for the rest of my life.
Mm.
So at age 52, I'm changing careers, and I'm like yourself, becoming a health and nutrition coach.
Well done.
Thank you, man.
Wow. That's awesome. May I ask what you were doing before? What profession or
Oh, I've
what
had a few
career were
different
you
jobs.
doing?
I was a sales rep for a few different companies. So on the road, just
Mm.
eating takeaway all day, not looking after myself, long hours, and
Mm.
so yeah, I've been in sales for probably 30 years, and it was never fulfilling. But I
Yeah.
had people say that when the time comes and you'll find out what you're meant to do, and I didn't really believe it. I thought, I'm getting too old for all this sort of stuff, but
Yeah. Yeah.
lo and behold, it did. And I feel 25. I really do. So, um,
Yeah.
when I was feeling sick, I didn't actually. I was talking to my wife, and I didn't actually really talk a lot about the future, because I thought deep down that I probably wasn't going to last too long. I thought
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can't sort of treat your body like this and live to a ripe old age. So I thought I'll just enjoy myself while I'm here, and when my time's
Yeah.
up, my time's up. And my outlook is completely different now. I'm we're planning travel and what I'm going to do with this new career, and I hope to have 30, 40, 50 years of good health in front of me.
Yep. Yep. No, that's awesome. I'll get into your career path in health coaching in a bit, but just going back into your story and just talking me through your timelines again. So you started Carnivore last
October
year,
last year hasn't even been 12 months.
October. It hasn't
Yep.
even been 12 months. 12
Mm.
months. Did you do any sort of diet before that? Any lead up to carnivore? Like, did you go low
I
carb?
always No,
You
I
know?
didn't. I went cold turkey, which I
Yeah,
perhaps wouldn't recommend for everyone, especially when you were a high
yeah.
sugar burner like I was. I went through the dreaded keto flu, and I had
The keto.
a couple of days afterwards, I had just incredible back pain, pain in all my
Yeah,
joints, which I've now found out was just oxalate dumping, um,
yeah, yeah,
and um, spent a fair bit of time getting to know the toilet.
yeah,
So that it's a pretty common thing, but knowing what I know now, I can sort of talk to people and ease them into it. But
yeah,
you white knuckle it through the keto flu, and then I woke up one day, literally woke up one day, and I'm like, I feel great, and haven't looked
yeah,
back since.
yeah. Wow. And so, from I guess, did you expect the sort of progression that you would have done? Because if you think about it, like it's not even a year, and you've made significant improvements in your metabolic markers, like your blood pressure and whatnot.
Mm.
Did you expect all that?
No, I really didn't. I said to my wife, look, I'm going to give this a go, because I think I had a healthy distrust of big pharma, and
Yeah.
again, hearing from people like Dr. Berry and Dr. Lustig, these people, I thought, well, I've been filling my body with junk for 30 years. What's the harm
Mm,
in trying this, to see if I feel better? Because I'd read some stories about people who were feeling great. And I've always liked red meat. I've always been able to eat red meat, so
yeah.
um, hasn't be- hasn't been a huge adjustment. But the bigger thing was just getting away from the carbs and sugar. Um, and the amazing thing now, as I'm thinking about it this morning, is how in tune I am with my body. And I thought I'd be the last person to be that way, because I
Mm,
used to mistake cravings for hunger. So you'd eat,
yeah.
takeaway food in the morning, and 2 hours later, your blood sugar does the roller coaster, and you're
Yeah.
craving something. I'm like, oh God, I'm hungry again. I'm actually not hungry. I
Yeah.
had plenty of fuel, but
Yeah.
it was my leptin and my ghrelin and all these things acting up. So, and now I actually know when I'm hungry. So I don't track calories. I don't do any of that sort of stuff. I eat when I'm hungry. So I ate
Mm,
twice yesterday. I ate once the day before. I just when I feel like eating, I just eat and eat till I'm full, and that's that.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. Awesome. So, the diet looks like it's full or pretty much close to full carnivore. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, mainly red meat, sort of beef and lamb. Um,
Yeah.
I do have some. I've experimented with some other things. I'll occasionally make a carnivore pizza with a chicken base and those
Yeah.
sorts of
Yeah.
things, just for a bit of variety. Um, and I still allow myself to. Um, we went out for dinner with some people a couple of weeks ago, and I had a steak and they served chips, and I just ate them. And
Mm,
the
yeah.
and I actually felt a bit bloated and a bit lousy, and I expected it, but it's not the end of the world. We don't have to be
Nah.
perfect, I don't think, on this diet. But the way I talk
No.
to clients of mine is you start thinking about food the same way you think about alcohol. So you might have a
Yes.
mate's birthday coming up, and you think, you know what, I'm going to go out this weekend and I'm going to tie one on, and you know it's no good for you, but you're willing to make that trade off to have a good time. You wake up the next morning feeling a bit rough, and you think, right, back on the wagon now. I'm going to start doing the right
Yeah.
thing. And if we start thinking about food like that, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Um, it's so funny getting into the this way of eating. It really does change the way you look at food.
Mm,
In so many aspects, not just in the social, light of things, but even, your real practical things. Like, I was just thinking the other day, the amount of food wastage that I've cut down on is
mm.
insane. Like, I remember having to buy, every time you go grocery shopping, you'd go get your fresh veg, and fruits and whatnot, and you just wouldn't get through it. And the amount of food wastage um, that I now see is just excessive. Is
Yeah,
a huge
100%.
thing. Like, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Funnily enough, they've
yeah,
just they might have already done it where you are. They're bringing in the recycling for your rubbish bins at the moment, and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
our pickup has been cut back from every week to every 2 weeks, and
yeah,
everybody in our local community is just up in arms. My bin's going to be full. Our bin's not even half full, and it's only out every
yeah,
2 weeks because we just don't have any rubbish.
yeah,
The only
yeah,
time I have any is if I buy meat from the supermarket, which I try not to do. There's the packaging that comes with that, but no packaged food, no boxes of this or that. So we just don't have any rubbish. It's a very efficient way of doing things.
yeah, yeah. No, it definitely is. But there's also so many other benefits to it that aren't so tangible with your health, but just
Mm,
practicality and the way you think things in a daily manner. Like, so I work as a nurse, Troy, and so
yep.
I sometimes go to work and I don't eat anything, and
Mm,
for your smoker or your tea breaks or your meal breaks, people look at you like you're crazy because
yeah.
you're not eating anything for the whole shift. How are you powering through?
Yep.
And I'm like, if you would have asked me 3 years ago, when I first started, I would have been a little bit sensitive about it, and I would have just
Yeah.
felt pressure to, "Alright, I'll have a little bit."
Yep.
Nowadays, it's like, well, no, I think of food as fuel.
Yeah.
It's
100%.
you eat to live, not you don't live to eat, so I don't have to force myself to eat if I don't want to, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah. We're
these
we're
little
creatures
things,
of
like you said.
Yeah, we're creatures of
Mm,
habit. So we're told to eat. It's programmed into us from a young age that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and you and I now know why that we've been programmed that way is because the John Harvey Kellogg's of the world um,
yeah, yeah.
about this really powerful marketing spin that everyone should eat breakfast, and even little subtle things. In food packaging, sugar is called energy. Now, how
Yeah.
can energy be a bad thing? So people see a packet of food and it's 200% of their regular, the recommended daily intake of sugar, and it says it's got this much energy. They're like, great. So there are all these
Mm,
subtle little things that people don't know about, and they think they're trying to eat healthy, and they don't know the right thing to do, because everything is working against them. All the marketing, all the messaging, all the tradition, and the things that we've always done. And even the doctors they go to who aren't educated in nutrition, it's all working against them. So
Oh,
it's an uphill battle, but it's one that I think we can eventually win.
yeah. Well, we're getting there. I think, you know what? I think the waves are starting to come in. I see a lot more people uh trying a carnivore diet.
Yeah,
Whether or not they stick to it or not, it is what it is. But there are more people becoming more aware of it. I 3 years ago, I was the only one
yeah,
doing it
100%.
in my circle of people that I knew. Now I know, a handful of
Yep.
people that are doing a carnivore diet and are doing very well with their health. Do you have any people around you that
Yeah,
are doing carnivore?
and God bless the internet, I guess. I know a couple, yeah, and I'm on a couple of Facebook communities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Some people that I met up with a guy that I used to work with a little while back, and he said, "My God, you look 20 years younger, and you've lost all this weight. And what did you do?" So I told him about it, and he's now trying it. So those first-hand stories, I think, are really powerful. And
Mm.
as I was saying, God bless the internet for that sort of stuff, because before, the only messages that we got, you're probably too young to remember what it was like before the internet, but I'm an old bloke. And the only
No, I
messages we got
remember.
are what you see in the newspaper, or the newspaper, or the TV, or the radio. And
Yep.
whoever's got the most money can control those messages. So the
Mhm.
little dissenting voices of maybe we're doing things the wrong way, they got drowned out really quickly. But now the internet is a very even playing field, I
Mm.
guess. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so all these people have voices, and it's I noted with interest the other day that you probably heard of Casey and Callie Means, who
Mhm.
are doing fantastic work overseas, talking about the problem that Americans have got with their diet. Um, they've just had a really big endorsement from Robert Kennedy, who's one of the presidential candidates, and he's basically making the food and diet issue front and center of his campaign. So
Mm.
there's some noise being made, and it's being heard by the right people, and hopefully, if it starts happening in America, then we will, because we always seem to follow their lead.
Mm.
Hopefully, people in Parliament here will sit up and take note that the food pyramid is just wrong, and the way that they're advertising things on behalf of big pharma and big food, it's not helping the population. It's the biggest crime of misinformation I think that's ever been perpetrated on a population. It's not tinfoil hat stuff. It's real. It's a massive problem, and it's something that just not enough people are talking about. But like you say, we're definitely making strides.
Definitely. Um, so actually, I'm just gonna, for those who are watching right now, guys, if you want to ask Troy or myself any questions, just pop them down, add a Q next to, or when you start off your question, so that I know that it's a question. But yeah, before I forget to ask you, let's talk about um, your decision, or I guess your current path into becoming a health coach, and what led you to it.
Yeah. So when I was sort of, I'll rewind a couple of years. I was
Mm.
running my own business, and while I was getting that sort of up and going, I was doing drug and alcohol testing on mine sites. And so
Mm.
you guys would come in, and you'd have to sort of screen them and ask, have you had any prescription or non-prescription medication over the last 7 days? And the general, just in discussions with those guys, the general just health and the amount of medications they were on, and the lack of knowledge they had, they basically just sort of go to their doctor, and your doctor doesn't ever talk about diet or lifestyle. They just give you a pill. First thing you do when you go to the doctor's office, he takes your
Mm.
blood pressure. Oh, your blood pressure's a little high, right? Stay off salt. Here's a pill. Off you go. And so it just got me thinking that there is such a need out there for real one-on-one advice and real one-on-one coaching. You can have, these mine sites are pretty big companies, but all they have as far as health to look after their workers is a couple of brochures in the crib room that they say eat less and exercise more, and it's probably the
Mm.
same in the hospital that you work in.
Yeah, yeah.
And I actually, I'll come back in a minute, but I thought I start talking to these guys and say, "Have you thought of this? Have you thought of that?" And their face goes blank, and no one's ever spoken to me about that. Did you know that you can, it's not salt that's necessarily the cause of your high blood pressure? It's most likely not. It's more than likely sugar and insulin resistance. And no one's talked to them about it because doctors are just,
Mm,
when they're trained, this is the problem, this is the pill, and that's the extent of their training. So
mm,
I thought there's just, and I love talking about it because I feel so lucky that I got the information that I got, which saved my life, and I sort of want to just pay that forward. And so if I can help somebody get started, or answer questions, or show an example, or whatever the case may be. um, I talked about being in sales for 30 years, and I was just never, my heart was never in it. And yet I start talking to people about health, and you won't stop
mm,
me. I'll talk for hours and hours and hours because I just believe in it so much. And I'm confident now that I've got the right information, and I'm doing the right thing, and so that I can confidently talk to other people and say, maybe you should try this, maybe you should look at this. And I've
mm,
helped a couple of people, just a couple of friends already. I had a friend with scoliosis in her back. She had basically a
mm,
curvature of the spine. Um, and just by changing her diet, she's fixed it. And the problem simply was because of inflammation, like the impaired signaling between the gut and brain. You've got muscles on either side of your spine, and one was contracting when it shouldn't, and one was relaxing when it shouldn't. So it was
mm.
doing this. When that signaling was restored, everything sort of fixed itself. Um, my
Wow.
wife is it's incredible. My wife's an endurance athlete. She does Ironman triathlons, and
Mm,
she's had a back injury and hasn't been able to compete for a couple of years. And um, she's gone. I've got her on a keto diet. She said, I can't do red meat all the
yeah,
time. That's just her.
yeah.
So
Fair enough.
so
Mm,
and that's fine. It's, everyone's different, but we sort of did that for her, and we cut out all the stuff in her diet that wasn't working. And not only is her pain gone, she's dropped sort of 5 kilos that she gained just from not being as active due to the injury.
mm,
And she's back training for her next Ironman, and she feels great. She looks great. Her mood has improved. She used to suffer from anxiety a little bit, and she's feeling on top of the world. So many of these stories, and I guess we talk about evidence for these things, and there's RCTs, and there's empirical evidence, and there's anecdotes, and there's all this sort of stuff. But I just say to people, you don't have to believe me. Just go and look it up, and look on a Facebook page or a chat room or something, and you will just
yeah.
see person after person after person after person who said this has worked for me. And you might find
Mm,
one out of 100 who says, "Nah, it didn't really work for me." This
yeah,
thing's a
yeah,
tidal wave, and people are going to really start sitting up and taking notice.
yeah, yeah. That's it. The more people that are on board and start to, post on social media, which we're starting to see, the more,
Mm,
you know, sort of, I guess you get a little bit more attention. And sometimes it's not
mm.
the most positive. However, any sort of attention is great. Like,
Yeah.
you're hearing celebrities and somewhat celebrities starting to go
Mm.
carnivore. I even heard of, don't know if you watch, footy or NRL. A couple of NRL players that are
I
going
did see
on
that.
on
Yeah.
the carnivore diet as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
very interesting. But
I
look,
read that.
mm,
Sorry, I read that Michael Jordan used to eat a steak before every game. I read that Wayne Gretzky, the hockey player, used to do the
yeah,
same thing. A lot of these elite athletes have been doing it for a long time, and it just hasn't been a buzzword sort of thing. But yeah,
no,
if you look hard enough, you'll see that plenty of athletes can live on red meat and animal products very successfully.
yeah, absolutely. Um, and obviously with the whole Olympics schmozzle that's just
That was a
happened, you
farce.
could clearly see that. Oh, that it was. I mean, to to deny animal foods and to
Mm.
to cut down costs to go plant-based for the planet. It's just it was you could just see how silly it just sounded and how
Yeah.
stupid it was really.
Yeah.
Um, but it is what it is. That's the world we live in today.
Yeah, that's right. There'll
Um,
always
yeah,
be people pushing certain agendas, but um,
yeah,
when you listen to people on the ground
yeah,
who are going through it, um, yeah, there's like I said, it's a tidal wave.
yeah, yeah. All right, so let's you know talk about a couple of things that people ask about when they want to go on carnivore, or a couple of troubleshooting questions um, that people often have. Let's start with I was talking to someone about fiber the other day. One of my clients actually,
Mhm.
and question was, yeah, where do we get our fiber from? And is it, is it a negative thing that we're not putting a lot of fiber in our diet? What are your thoughts around fiber?
I've watched this with interest because there are people I trust, like Dr. Lustig, who thinks that fiber is important. There are people like
Mm,
Dr. Zoe Harcum, who's done some real clever research talking about fiber being an anti-nutrient. Dr. Anthony Chafee as
mm,
well, and that we don't really need it. And I guess the basic push behind fiber is that it increases your or slows down your glycemic intake of foods, and um,
mm,
so it doesn't spike your blood sugar as well. It helps you. They say it helps you digest things, but I actually think it's the opposite. I think it's, from what I can see, it's an anti-nutrient which
mm,
stops you from digesting things. And what I find is on the carnivore diet, and if we can get into the realm of too much information, I have a bowel movement probably every 2 or 3 days, sometimes every 3 or 4 days, and I
mm,
feel great. And I think it's just simply because I'm not creating any waste. Everything I'm putting in my body,
mm.
I'm using. So if there's no waste to get rid of, then why do you
Mm,
need bowel movements?
yeah.
So look, that's my take on it. I've seen plenty of evidence for people who are thriving without it, and
Mm,
it seems to be one of those things that was pushed probably by the agriculture industry because
mm,
their food's all chock full of it. So it's
yeah.
promoted as something healthy. But I'm trying to remain open minded, and if someone can show me something convincing that we do need it, and it's a problem if we don't, then I'm certainly willing to
Yeah.
listen. But at this stage, I think I'm siding with Dr. Harker and Dr. Chafee that we can do just fine without it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's quite, for me, in my mind, it's quite simple. Um, Fiber is, if we sort of break down what fiber is and how it works in our system, fiber is, it's plant matter that can't be digested. There's
Correct.
only a small portion of it that can be um, fermented in the gut and absorbed through your gut as short chain fatty acids. Okay, so it's a small amount of it. Those short chain fatty acids happen to be ketone bodies, which your body can make on its own if you
Mhm.
put yourself in a state where you create more ketones, i.e., go on a low carb, high fat diet or a carnivore diet. So that negates that requirement in my mind. The other thing is, if you aren't able to absorb it in your system, what purpose does it really give you?
That's right.
It's
I was
like,
going to say that sort of
yeah,
leads us on to bioavailability, which is something again that nobody talks about because the bioavailability
yeah,
of spinach, which is seen as a superfood and a great source of iron, is about 5%, whereas red meat it's upwards of 25, I believe.
yeah, yeah. So you lose out the absorption of nutrients in that plant food because it's being excreted out. It can't be absorbed. but people say it's good for your gut health because it helps you open your bowels because it irritates the gut wall. It provides bulk in your stools. Well, again, with any sort of system, what efficiency does that give you to have bulk wastage? It doesn't, you know, it
Yes.
it doesn't make sense in that point of view. Um, Now, do we need fiber in order for us to move our bowels? No, that's definitely not the case because if it were true, then I should have been dead about 3 years ago.
Yes.
I should have had a bowel surgery a week or
Yeah.
two into the carnivore diet. So that's not the case.
Mhm.
It really just puts it, this notion into the fiction category, really, in my
Yeah.
mind. And
Yeah.
and then I don't know if you watched Paul Mason's video on low carb down under.
I love Paul Mason.
Um, and I was talking to a person about this as well. To my knowledge as well, there isn't any uh, controlled trials that they've done where they've looked at fiber and its effects towards constipation. But there's that study that he brought up: 63 patients in a hospital that presented with idiopathic constipation with signs and symptoms of it. Anyways,
Yeah, Paul
um,
Mason is probably the smartest bloke in every room he steps into. He's
yeah,
he's very clever, and he doesn't the thing that I try and look at, and you probably do the same when someone's quoting
mm,
some sort of research or some sort of evidence, is are they pushing a certain barrow? Do they have a certain agenda? Um, and like I said, I don't.
yeah,
If someone could prove to me tomorrow that the carnivore diet is bad for me, then I should go completely plant based and prove that to me without a shadow of a doubt, I would do it because it's best for my health. Um, but we're finding that
yeah,
people who are pushing fiber tend to be plant based for ethical, for financial, for to get clicks, whatever the case may be. So I think your best source again is people on the ground who are doing it,
mm,
who just want to improve their health, have no
yeah,
barrow to push, and I think that their experiences, when you've got a large enough sample size, which in the carnivore community we certainly do, I
yeah,
think you can take that as gospel.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And there's hundreds of thousands of us out there that are talking about it online. So yeah, there's a lot of anecdotes there.
Yeah, Darth
But yeah,
Carnivore, hello, I love that name.
yep, Darth Carnivore. Thanks for tuning in. Hard to win the bulk still competition without fiber. Yeah, we're probably losing that race. I think when it comes to us
Yeah, no
versus
trophies
the
for us.
plant-based eater. Yeah, no trophies for us there. um, But yeah, that N equals 63 study, they had different fiber groups. They were allocated different diets. One with just a standard, control group, high fiber diet, a low fiber diet, and a no fiber diet.
Yeah,
The no fiber diet had zero signs of constipation, zero signs
yeah,
and symptoms. So,
yeah.
and the high fiber group being the highest
Yes.
in the amount of people showing signs and symptoms. So it makes sort of sense in that regard
And
because,
again, we
you
don't
know,
we've been programmed that you should go once or twice a day, and same as we've been
yeah,
programmed that you should eat 3 times a day and snack in between. So we don't,
yeah,
that's what our grandmothers told us and our mothers told us, and we don't know any different. But I my bowel movements are the same as my eating. I go when I need to go,
yeah,
and it's no
yeah,
problem, and I'm not constipated, I don't
yeah,
have any dramas, and it's just my body being intuitive, saying, "You've got some waste there, let's go get rid of it." And
mm,
and that's that. And maybe that's how we evolved. Maybe that's how it's been all along until we started shoveling all this, you know, garbage into us from when the agricultural revolution started, and then more recently when the fast food
yeah,
industry really took off.
yeah, yeah. And then when we started to put them in little capsules, little pills, and little powders that, hey, actually, you really need this, and we've got a great product for it, it becomes really marketable. And I think,
Yeah.
yeah, you do get. I think, yeah, you could get money out of it.
Oh,
So
no
it
doubt,
makes sense.
no doubt.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And that's why the health
yeah,
industry is in America, certainly it's the largest and also the fastest growing industry on the planet. So, you know,
yeah,
big pharma have got their finger in both pies. Not only do they give you pills for and medications for when you get sick, they're now behind, I don't know what the percentage is, but a good percentage of the supplement industry.
yeah,
So, you go and get all these things in a capsule, which are probably three-quarters sawdust, and they're
yeah,
getting you from both ends, so to speak.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so that's that with fiber. So, um, yeah, not necessary, I don't think, anyways. And it looks like you agree as well. Now, it's interesting when you're talking about your story. You were saying you were diagnosed with diabetes type 2, and
Mm.
the first thing the doctors mentioned to you was, let's talk about pills, going on insulin, and that whole schmozzle, the standard approach.
Mhm.
How do you look at it now? How do you tell people? So, say they are diagnosed with high blood sugars, i.e., the category of being type 2 diabetic.
Yep.
What do you tell them?
I try and give them a bit of a backstory, and I try and relate it to their life. I was talking to a gentleman the other day, and
Mm,
um, I tell them basically what blood sugar does, and how it
mm,
affects your body, and how, you know, triglycerides transfer fat around your body and deposits made in your arteries and these sorts of things. But backing up from that, I just tell them that, this is why you feel cravings, and this is why you go on the roller coaster, and this is why you've got no energy,
mm,
and because these things are doing this to your body, and you've got hormones called leptin and ghrelin, which are supposed to regulate and tell you when you're hungry and when you're full. And the reason
mm.
you open a packet of Doritos and can't stop eating them is because your leptin switch is turned off, and so your
Yeah.
brain actually thinks that you're starving. And when you can relate it to them, they go, "Yeah, I do feel like that. I get three-quarters of and I'm feeling full in the tummy, but I still
Yeah.
feel hungry." And so then we get into the conversation, well, you're actually not hungry, you're just craving more sugar because your brain is sending you these really powerful signals.
Mm,
Um, I told a bloke the other day about the experiment that was done with rats, and they had access to talking about how addictive sugar is. Um, and they had some rats, and they gave them access to sugar water, and cocaine
mm.
in water. Now,
Yeah.
I don't know what the mechanism or the contraption was, but to get the sugar, they first had to endure an electric shock. To get the
Yeah.
cocaine, they could get it for free anytime they liked. 8 out of 10 rats still went for the sugar. They endured the electric shock because the pull of the sugar was so great. And that's
Yeah.
what it does to us. And when people realize that it's not about, it's not about being in control and willpower and all this sort of stuff. There are
Mm,
forces much more powerful than our little feeble minds that are instructing us what to do. Um, then they start to realize that the only way to stop it from happening, and to get off that roundabout, is to put the hormones back in its place. And once they can realize how powerful they are and that they can work for good, and when they're functioning properly, our bodies are an extremely efficient machine. They get a bit of a glimpse, and hopefully that is enough to sort of pique their interest and go, well, you know what, I'm sick of feeling like this. Maybe this other way is worth a try.
mm, mm. I like that. That's really cool. That you acknowledge that. You know, it's not about the you know trying to beat the cravings, and willpower and whatnot, because it really isn't. At the end of the day, when you get yourself in a state of, I guess, when you go low carb, and your hormones are in sort of balance, you really tend to have less. The craving signals aren't as strong.
Correct.
And a good recent, um, I guess, experiment to that was with my clients right now. So I'm running 4-week weight loss challenge, and
Mhm.
nearly all of them within the last 3 weeks, they've all stopped having these strong urges and strong cravings. That's just, after 3 weeks of cutting out carbohydrates down to a very low range, they don't crave it as much anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's quite simple.
And the thing about cravings is when you take it back to our strip it back to our physiology, cravings
Mm,
are an emergency signal. Our brain is
mm,
telling us that we're starving. So we need to do whatever is necessary to get food, or we're going to die, which is,
yeah,
that's what our brain is telling us. So, and
yeah,
that
yeah,
used to be the case back in, in prehistoric days when you hadn't eaten and you had those really strong signals that you need to eat. Um, but yeah, now it's because those hormones are switched off that your brain is just not getting the signal that you're full, and you better
mm,
keep eating if there's food around because we're in real trouble here. Where in fact it's quite the opposite. So so I guess my point is to try and overcome that with quote unquote willpower. It's just not going to happen. Um,
mm,
it's like a reflex. If someone throws a brick at your head, you can use all the willpower you want to say I'm not going to get out of the way. You're going to swerve because
mm,
it's a reflex. It's your body activating and saying, "Hey, this is a danger. We need to do something about it." And
yeah,
and cravings for sugar and carbs are no different.
exactly. Yeah, it's a normal physiological response.
Yeah, it's supposed to work like that. So if your
Yeah,
brain's telling you you're hungry, then it should be a situation where you are hungry and you need to do something about it. So it's your
mm,
brain's early warning system and it's working as it should, unless the signaling is getting jumbled up.
mm. Well, do you think it's not a really appealing answer to a few people because of pharmaceuticals. They'd rather go down that route of, hey, let's take an Ozempic injection instead,
Mhm.
or let's go on metformin, a medication used to treat diabetes to lower blood sugars down. Do you think it's too late to try and convince these people, or or let's not put it that way? I never think it's too late. How would you approach it in terms of trying to at least give them enough information and um, motivation to try and not go down that path? Because let's face it, there's always going to be side effects when you go on any medications.
Correct. Yeah.
So
There's no
yeah,
medication that I know of today that doesn't have side effects. Look, the short answer, and it's really unfortunate, is people are going to have to die. They're going to have
mm,
to get, problems with their kidneys and their thyroid and their
mm,
gut and um, to make the news. But they're like we've always been up against with food and pharma marketing. They're really powerful forces that we're
mm,
up against. I heard something really interesting the other day. It's slightly off topic, but big pharma in the US controls 60% of the advertising spend on US TV. Now, the
wow,
reason they do that is not so they can advertise their products because their doctors give out the products anyway. They don't need to
mm,
advertise metformin or Ozempic or such and such per se. But what they do, because they're the biggest spenders of, the biggest advertising spend, none of the news programs, none of the current affairs programs say anything bad about their products. And I'll put this in perspective. Imagine if you're in Channel 7 here in Australia and
mm,
Toyota controls 60% of their advertising spend. Do you reckon there's a single
mm.
show going to be aired on Channel 7 that would say anything bad about Toyota?
No,
Not a
no,
chance, because the advertising spend will get pulled. And that's the power that they have in the US, is that if someone says, if one of the networks over there says something bad about Ozempic, then all of a sudden Novo Nordisk is on the phone saying we're going to pull $10 million of our advertising spend. So
yeah,
the news, unfortunately, nowadays is just turned into, the home shopping network. You can pay to have your products, marketed as a news story, the new miracle weight
mm,
loss drug, and this and that. So people are going to see that and people are going to believe it,
mm,
because we all grew up believing that the news was the news and you believe what is on there, because back when when we were young. Unfortunately, the news wasn't
Yes.
for sale, but now it is, because
Mm.
they're a business like anything else. So, going back to your question, it's going to take some independent voices to talk about the issues with all these drugs. Um, there are people who are independent. I don't know. He's a fairly divisive figure, but people like Joe Rogan, who at least ask the questions. You
Mm.
may agree with him, you may not, but
Yeah.
they can at least be independent and ask questions and get voices on from each side. People like Callie
Mm.
Means. I think Callie and Casey Means are going to be two of the biggest and most important voices that we hear from in the next 10 years. Um,
Mm.
People like Georgia Eade, who's doing fantastic
Mm.
research
Yeah.
about the effects of reducing inflammation and gut brain sealing to help ADHD and dementia and depression, anxiety. Um, more than 20% of Australians at last count were on antidepressants. If you can believe that, 1 in 5 people in this country are being
Wow.
just chemically drugged for life, and it changes your brain chemistry almost forever. If you've ever spoken, and you were being a nurse, if you ever speak to someone about,
Yeah.
have you ever tried to go off antidepressants, they'll say, oh, I forgot to take them one day and I thought I felt like jumping off a
Yeah.
bridge. That's how
Yeah.
powerful
Yeah.
the effect is
Yeah.
on our brain chemistry. So you go to your doctor and you say, oh, I've had a lousy week, or I'm feeling a bit depressed, which we all do from time to time, perfectly normal. And they give you a pill which could literally change the course of your life. And we've
Yeah.
got to do
Yeah.
something about it, because in my opinion, it's criminal. Doctors don't do it because they're trying to do the wrong thing. They do it because they simply don't know any better. It's the same old story. Here's the problem. Here's the pill.
Mm. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. It's not just antidepressants too. We're talking opioids.
Mm.
Yeah. Analgesics, even paracetamol. Like sometimes,
Yeah,
the addictions that people have, and people don't realize it, obviously, because it only happens down the track when you start to
yeah.
get some problems. Yeah, it's just insane. I can't remember how long ago this was now, but there was a post on social media somewhere about Ozempic. You know, with it being now in Australia, what was it? The TGA, Therapeutic Goods. Yeah,
Yep.
they've they've now announced that as of October this year, they're no longer going to be um, uh, having they're no longer preparing Ozempic in chemists.
Oh, okay.
So it's no longer an over the counter medication, I believe. Look,
Prescription.
don't
Yeah.
quote me on that,
Can't be
but
done off prescription. I did
yeah,
read something like that. Yeah.
yeah.
Which is it's a
Um,
positive step, but yeah, still doesn't go far enough.
yeah, yeah. Look, it doesn't. And when it comes to promoting health and promoting good eating, it's not going to make a dent at all.
Mm,
However, that's still not going to fix the issue with the
correct.
amount of people getting unwell. Because if that's an option that's available, I hate to play devil's advocate here, but if that's an option that someone might want to consider, then fine. Better
Mm.
that than going down the route of diabetic complications.
Of
However,
course.
however,
But
it still
it's
isn't. It
promoted as
still
the
leaves a
only
bitter
option in a
taste.
lot of places. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um,
And weight loss
but
surgery is a similar thing. It can obviously,
yes,
losing, if you're morbidly obese, losing weight has got to be a good thing, because fatty liver and all these sort of things. But I've known several people who've had weight loss surgery and lost significant. I'm talking 100 kilos plus, and within a couple of
yes,
years they're back up to where they were, because they haven't been spoken to about their diet. So their
mm,
stomach, it just expands over time, same as ours does when we're young and fit, and then we start eating junk, and our stomach just expands over time.
yep,
It's no different. I talked to a gentleman the other day who came in for his morning drug test, and he was a type 2 diabetic, and taking metformin, and he sat down and he plonked one of those 1 liter iced coffees on the table next to him. And his doctor basically said to him, "You're taking this medication now, so everything's fine. You can do what you like." So he's
Yeah.
ingesting 50 grams of sugar before the sun comes up.
Yeah.
It's just crazy, absolutely crazy.
It is. It is. But I remain on the optimistic side that it's never too late. There are a lot of stories.
Mhm.
I'm hearing you know people over age of 50 going carnivore or going low carb. People that don't have necessarily have
Yeah,
the expertise that these young people do to go online. They're starting to go onto it
yeah,
and starting to try.
yeah,
Um, it's good. It is a positive step. What
yeah. And that's
else?
part of the reason why I want to do what I'm doing, because
Mm,
I'm a bloke in his 50s who'd always just done the wrong thing and treated his body like an amusement
yeah.
park, as the standard would say. Um, and the message I guess I want to get out there is that it's never too late. And I hope that
Nah.
people will see my experience. There's nothing extraordinary about what I've done. It was actually the extraordinary thing that was what I used to eat and how I used to treat my body, and the fact that I was somehow still upright. All I'm doing now is what we're evolutionary evolutionarily supposed to do. And
Mm,
my body and other people's have just shown an amazing capacity to heal. So
mm,
it's never too late. And I guess that's the message I want to get out there is, you know, no one wants blokes who are in their 50s who work in a coal mine. They don't want to be taking advice off a 22-year-old life coach with six pack abs, because it's just not relatable to them. But if I say to
nah.
them, I've been where you are and I can show you the way out, and this is what it's done for me, and this is what's hard and this is what's easy, um, then hopefully they'll have that conversation, and they'll have that conversation with their kids and with their brothers and
Mm,
sisters and cousins, and word of mouth will spread,
yeah.
because that's the next part of the equation is, we're feeding our kids what we eat, and it's causing untold problems. The amount of kids with ADHD and autism nowadays is
Mm,
incredible. I think in the US, in just the year
absolutely.
2000, 1 in 1,500 kids had autism. It's now 1 in
Mm,
36, which is extraordinary.
mm,
It's just, cancer rates in children are up 80%. 20% or 25% of teenagers are dealing with a metabolic illness. It's all because of the food we're eating. And so
mm,
it's the old thing of when you know better, you do better. So hopefully when people can start, seeing the changes for themselves, they can pass it on to their kids. And the message will be, you know, my grandmother told me, my mother told me, and it'll just get passed down, and we'll start doing the right things. So hopefully it won't take too many generations, and the change
mm,
is starting now. But yeah, like you, I'm optimistic that it can happen.
absolutely. Um, how are you with time, by the way, Troy?
I'm fine. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Couple other topics that we could probably talk about.
Sure.
This is one that I got asked recently. Wanted to hear your thoughts around this, but the cultural and social aspects of eating, going on either low carb, keto, or carnivore.
Mhm.
Um, how can someone navigate around that, especially coming from, let's say, uh, a standard Western diet, oh, basically standard Australian diet, going out with friends and going out with families, going to parties. How do we sort of coach these people and try to help them navigate these little intricacies in life?
Yeah, I guess to pre-warn them, and to start having these conversations, that
Mm,
if you're motivated and if you're at the point where you want to make a change, bear in mind that your friends are going to be resistant. People will do what they've always done.
mm,
Um, so I think the most powerful um, encouragement is when people start seeing results, and start feeling, you know,
mhm,
more responsive to what they put in their body, it makes it, certainly from my standpoint, it makes it much easier to go out and say, I'm not having that. I'll just have a steak. And if you've got, look, it's like anything in life. If your friends, when you have success of any type, whether it's social, whether it's health, whether it's financial, you'll have people in your life who are really happy for you, and you'll have people in your life who perhaps aren't happy for you, or are jealous, or are bitter because there's things happening in their own life and they don't like seeing you have success. It's actually probably a good way to find out who's in your corner and who's not. So I've often gone out with people and just ordered a steak, and they look at me and go, "Oh, I don't like your veggies," or whatever the case was. And I say, "Well, no, actually, in actual fact, I'm on the carnivore diet." And we get into a conversation. I've had some really interesting conversations with people, and that's been a really good segue to talk about and give them. And I can often see them going away saying, "Oh, that's maybe something to think about." And I've had people who are just stuck in the mud, and they're like, "Oh, you just eat red meat, you're going to get colon cancer and you're going to die," and that's fine, because you'll never change everybody's mind. But I actually put a post on my Facebook page that back when I used to eat everything that was beige, fried this and fried that, no one said a word. But now that I eat steak, apparently I'm going to die. So, you certainly won't convince everyone. But the most powerful way that I've found that will help you stick to your guns is just by having results yourself, and knowing within yourself that it works. So you don't need validation from other people saying that's a good idea or that's not a good idea, because you just know. And it's in my recent enough past that I still remember how it used to feel, craving carbs and getting up and having sore back and sore joints and brain fog and wanting to have a nap at 2:00. And it was only a matter of months ago that I felt like that, and now I feel great. So that's as powerful an incentive I need to keep going. And so hopefully, if I can share that with people and tell them what to expect, hey, you will get these reactions from people, and some people will be happy for you and some people won't. But listen to your body. Don't even listen to me. Listen to your body. And once you try this, if it's working for you, then great. Then no one else's opinion matters.
I like it. Pretty much resonate with you there in all your points. Add in a couple of other things is, a lot of people feel shy, or a lot of people feel like they don't want to tell people that they're doing carnivore. Either they feel a little bit embarrassed to have that conversation. However, to me personally, it becomes so much easier once it's communicated. Say you're out with friends or family, and you just tell them, honestly, just tell them that, hey, I'm trying a carnivore diet, and I've been doing it for a couple of months or a couple of weeks or even a couple of days. I just want to see how it goes. Most of the time, people are generally receptive about it. That's from the experiences that I've heard, not just from myself, but other people as well. You'll get some people that try and put you down and whatnot. However, consistency is key. I know it's cliche, but the longer you're going to try something to see the results, the more people are going to notice. And so I guess this is a tip. If you don't want to have those awkward conversations with people, maybe try, if you can, I'm not saying you should, but to try and limit yourself from going out into these social gatherings or meetings for at least a couple of weeks until you've tried the diet, and then see for yourself, give yourself an experimental period where you go full on, try it with consistency. And once you start seeing results, maybe try and test yourself by going out in public, start talking to people, telling people, hey, I'm doing a carnivore diet, I'm doing really, really well, I've lost 2-3 kilos, whatever it may be. Then that conversation might be a little bit easier because you've got the results to back it up.
Couldn't agree more. Yep. It's you've got to set yourself up for success, and there are lots of there are lots of changes early on, and when you start something, this is different to what you've been doing, you probably have doubts in your
Mm.
own mind, and is it going to work? And so you're not prepared
Yeah.
to answer the questions from other people. So when you've got that evidence behind you, and you can say with 100% certainty, I feel great, I've lost weight, my blood pressure's down, whatever the case may be, you've sort of more you're more in a place to have those conversations. And like I said, it's a really good way. I'm at the point now, and this is one of the things that happens when you get older. If people aren't in my corner, that's fine. I
Yeah.
don't need everyone to like me. So I just need to
Yeah.
be surrounded by a group of people that who I celebrate their success, they celebrate mine. And
Yeah.
if you're not in that group, then you do you, and we'll go our separate ways, and that's fine. So um, if people want to bag it out or criticize it without knowing the facts, that's fine. I just leave it alone. Um,
Mm.
Probably the best example I've had of that conversation was with my own mother, who is
Yeah.
just set in her ways. She's like, "Oh no, it's really bad for you." And so all I said to her was, I didn't even talk about all my metabolic markers. I said, "Just good news, Mum. I've lost 30 odd kilos." "Oh, that's great." And she rang me a couple of weeks after we had that conversation, and she said, "Oh, we had a dietitian come to. She's in a retirement village. She said, "Oh, we had a dietitian come and talk to us." And I said, "Oh yeah," and she said, "Oh yeah, they told us that we should be eating lots of bread and cereal and be using margarine instead of
Mm.
butter." And I just went, "Okay, that's fine." Um, she's in her 80s. She's not going to change her mind now, and there's no point
Yeah.
getting in an
Yeah.
argument or having that conversation. So sometimes you've just got to sort of nod your head and smile. Um,
Yeah.
all I can
Yeah.
do is what's best for me. I can't control her life any more than she can control mine.
Yeah.
Like I said, if people want to talk about it and people want to get my experience and my perspective and ask questions, then I'm here all day. I'll
Yeah. Yeah.
answer questions and give you support until the cows come home. If it's not your thing, that's fine. I had a mate who tried it, um, and he's just recently gone and had weight loss surgery because he said the diet wasn't working. I know for the
Mm.
fact he just couldn't lay off the carbs. It's as simple as that. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not here to criticize him, but um, people will. You can lead a horse to water, I guess. You can only encourage and support
Pretty
people, but
much.
at the end of the day, they're going to make their own decisions.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, couldn't agree more. The end of the day, we just have to do what's best for us. And if if it doesn't work out for you, then fine, so be it.
Mhm.
I mean, I could argue all day and say, that you could have done things differently. You could have done it this way.
Mhm.
But however, like you said with your mate, it's probably, you know, he's come across challenges that he couldn't
He's just
overcome,
simply not
and
ready.
that's
That's
why.
right. And
Yeah.
yeah, I have a great deal of empathy for that because, like I said, I tried off and on for 20 years to
Yeah.
cut out sugar and try things to lose weight, and I kept falling off the wagon. So I'm not because I've had success
Mm.
now. I'm not here to criticize people who aren't quite at that stage where they're ready to make that. They'll get to that point before they get the diagnosis that I got.
Mm, 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 mm. Yeah. Um, so let's talk couple other last few questions. When it comes to cravings, all right.
Sure.
So if we're trying to help people out with their cravings, what are some top things that people need to understand? We already talked about cravings being a normal physiological response that your body uh basically goes through. How do we deal with it? Do they ever go away? Have they gone away for you, actually?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I've found out that there are probably two categories of people when it comes to carb addiction and
Mm,
sugar addiction. Um, there are
mm,
moderators and there are abstainers. Some people can
yes.
moderate, and just not go completely off the wagon, and some people have to be abstainers. What I've found in my individual um, my individual self is that I can moderate carbs. I can like I said, I can go out and have a schnitty and chips and be okay the next day.
Mm.
But I can't moderate pure sugar. If I went out and had 3 or 4 Cokes, then I would just feel those cravings come back something fierce. So you have to sort of
Yes.
know yourself. And yeah, there's a bit of trial and error involved. But I guess you go through. I guess you go through a journey of learning about yourself and what motivates you and what causes you to feel certain
Mm.
ways. Always heard about people being emotional eaters, and you get the picture
Yes.
of someone curled up crying in the corner, eating a chocolate cake or whatever the case may be. And I used to think, well, that's not me. I don't eat because I'm sad. But what I actually realized that I eat when I'm bored. I eat because I have the need for dopamine, like we all do,
Mm.
and overeating is one of the ways that we get it. So I sort of learned the new definition of emotional eating and realized that
Mm.
I actually was. If I was bored, if I was angry, if I was stuck in routine where it's been 2 hours, I better eat, and my brain's used to you know having those signals, and my body's used to getting food every 2 hours, and so I was an emotional eater, just of a different type, I guess. So
Mm.
when you can learn that stuff about yourself and start to recognize the signals, you can take steps to negate them. So in my case, if I'd get a craving for something because I was sitting around and I was bored or I was waiting for something, I'd go and find something to occupy myself, something that I enjoy,
Mm.
something that will take my mind away from it. And then half an hour later, oh, I actually wasn't hungry at all and I feel fine, and I might not eat for another 3 hours. So just looking inwards and recognize those signals and triggers, you can start taking steps to work out what individually works for you, and recognize when something's about to happen, and you can take steps to prevent it. As far
Mm.
as the physical cravings for certain foods, eat something that you really enjoy. So don't if you don't feel like a steak, if you're like, oh, I'm over steak, I've eaten it every day this week, have some chicken or some chuck some pork in the air fryer, or bacon. Something with a lot of fat generally will get you satiated much quicker. So again, that's just understanding that when I feel like this is what will make me feel better. So there are ways
Mm.
without reaching for the Pringles, that can help combat those cravings, especially in the early days.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Those are really good points, by the way. I think, to sort of chime in a little bit, it just goes to show how powerful the gut and brain connection
Mm.
is. Um, and a lot of people, that's a very foreign concept, that there's some sort of linkage between your gut and your brain.
Mm.
Whereas what a lot of people don't know as well is that your gut has the most nerve endings, more than your spine, and
Mm.
it's amazing how putting food in your mouth triggers so many different sensations and signals, and
Yeah.
vice versa. Sort of signals that your brain sends to your gut that tells you to crave or to eat a
Yeah.
certain piece of
You
food.
sort of, your gut's like, yeah, your gut's basically the engine room, and your brain's really just the loudspeaker.
Yeah,
Your gut tells your brain what's
yeah,
going
yeah,
on. This is the problem, and your
yeah,
brain then sends the signal out to the rest of your body via hormones and via signaling that
yeah.
this is the issue. But it all happens in the engine room, and if the engine room is working fine, then no one needs to get on the loudspeaker.
No, absolutely. And then you go on autopilot. So now
Correct.
you form these habits that go on for years and years and years, until you don't even realize, like you said for yourself, like you didn't realize that, hey, you actually had a bit of an emotional trigger when it came to
Mm.
cravings. And that's what people do need to realize, is that you won't realize until you really take yourself off that autopilot. I had to take myself off autopilot to realize that I had a crazy routine that I would normally do. Every time I finished work, the first thing I would do was go to the pantry. I would
Yep.
look eye level. I would put everything that I needed at eye level. I didn't realize that until I took myself off autopilot when I started asking the hard questions. Um, and that's what I love doing right now as a coach is that I get to help people ask, I get to ask those questions with my clients and to talk about these little intricacies that whilst it may seem, oh, this is not really going to help me improve my, my weight loss, it actually does. These little things change the way you do things in life, and that ultimately leads you to not wanting to grab those Pringles, not wanting to grab those, Doritos or that can of
Yep.
Coke, you know? Yeah. Um,
Yep.
it's just
There's nothing more satisfying from a coach's perspective than A,
mm,
having your clients start to ask you questions, and B, have them asking
yeah,
themselves questions and start looking internally, because that's when you know they've got it. That's when you know
yeah,
they're on the right path, because that's what we want. We don't want to be standing there like a teacher at the chalkboard saying, this is what you must do. We want to just show them the way to start discovering things for themselves, because once they do that, you can, it's like letting your child go out into the world. You know that they're set up, you know that they know the
yeah.
right things to do, and they'll take it from here.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if you feel the same way too, but you feel different from a person who's got authority to prescribe things like here's a meal plan, here's medications, here's this and that. Like you don't have that. I don't feel that satisfaction in wanting to do that because at the
Mm,
end of the day, if I'm telling someone to do something, they're not going to want to do it. You know,
correct.
I had the doctors had a hard time trying to convince me to go on a statin, and it took me 10 years to be like, "Okay, fine, I'll take it. I'll take the
Mm,
statin. I'll take the blood pressure medications." You know, it makes it very hard to do it. And but when you work in a coaching partnership, when you talk to people about things that they can relate to and give them that autonomy and independence to make that decision, it becomes a lot more satisfying when they actually do it themselves. Like,
100%.
I had a
A good
client
coach
who
listens a lot more than they talk.
yeah, yeah. It's amazing how much they actually do without being told,
Mm,
you know, this is how you do it. Like, yeah, all my clients pretty much, yeah, I've never told them once that you had to go on a carnivore diet. You had to do it this way. You had to do it this way.
mhm.
They came to that conclusion themselves, and
Yep,
we work towards you know and obviously we provide the education. We can only provide the education, but that's to me seems more powerful than prescribing, and so that's why I
yep.
enjoy what I do. Yeah.
Yep, I say it all the time. You know better, you do better. So it's our job to help them discover,
Mm,
um, to educate them and discover the right things to know, so that they know better, and then they take it upon
mm,
themselves to do better.
absolutely. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about, Tora? Any topics that you wanted to?
No, not really. It's really great to talk to you, and it's fantastic to make all these connections in the community, because the more of these conversations that we see, it just provides that groundswell of evidence that there is something behind this. That it's not a fad diet. I
Mm,
hate the word diet. It's not it's not a bunch of wackos, standing around chanting and doing something
no.
extreme. It's people who are who were taking all the mainstream advice, and it turned out to be not the right thing for us. I've seen your before pictures, and you were unhealthy, and you looked older than
Mm,
you do now, and you
yeah.
looked run down, and same as I did, and because at the time you didn't know better, you were just doing what everyone
Mm,
else did, and so seeing all these people with the same stories of just feeling better, looking better, and wanting to spread the word, and to spread that to other people, it's a gift. We
mm,
try
mm,
and all spread kindness and positivity in the world, and if we can spread this message of encouraging and helping people to take control of their own health and not leave it in the hands of corporations or doctors, it's got to be a
mm.
good thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
So let's talk about your business, and so tell us about where they can find you, where people can access your service, and
Yeah,
who
I
you
actually,
cater
I
to.
actually
Who are
haven't
your
gone public yet. I've got a Facebook page. The business is called Function Health.
Okay.
Um, and I will. Sorry, I'm just looking down at my phone. I'll show you the Facebook page if anyone wants to jump on. And I don't know if you can see that on Facebook.
Yeah. Yep. Perfect.
Um, just jump on there, and what we try and give is just advice to just regular people. I'm not telling you out there to go carnivore on day one and start running 10Ks a day and doing things that are unrealistic. I encourage people to ask questions of your doctor. If your doctor says you've got to be on a statin, ask why. Ask if there's anything I can do from a diet and lifestyle standpoint. Um, and
Mm,
dispelling some myths, that just to get people thinking, that, oh, the first time I've ever heard that vegetable oil isn't healthy for me. Um, First time I've ever
mm.
heard that salt doesn't necessarily cause blood pressure. And like we talked about, if it gets people thinking, starts the conversation, I'm always here to hit me up with any questions. And I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to hopefully answer questions so you can find the right answers for yourself. So yeah,
Mm.
jump on any time, and hopefully we can make some progress together.
Love it. Love it. I'm going to post your links on the YouTube video description. So yeah, guys, if you haven't already, follow Troy on his page, Function Health. But otherwise, mate, we'll reach the hour and 15-minute mark. I think we'll cap it at that for today.
No
Thank you
worries.
so much for your time.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you
To keep
for
keep doing all the good work you're doing.
Yep, I really appreciate it, and I hope we do have more conversations like this. It's great to really
Yeah,
just
100%.
have a
Once my
chat.
channel's up and going, I'll be harassing
Yeah,
you to get on my channel as well.
awesome stuff. Well, look, I look forward to it. But anyways, to the viewers who have watched, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for those who subscribed to the channel, and like always, give it a big thumbs up, give a like to these videos, share it to people if you think people are interested in it. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video or live stream. Thanks, guys.